On this episode of Blending Bourbon, be sure to join Dixon and myself, David Mark Young, as we discuss pairing various foods with bourbon and whiskey.
Blending Bourbon is the podcast that takes you beyond the barrel and behind the scenes of the whiskey industry with master blenders Dixon Dedman and David Mark Young.
Welcome to another episode of Blending Bourbon, podcast sponsored by Golden Sheaf. My name is Dixon Dedman of 2XO Whiskey, here as always with the pride of Omaha and the most attractive honorable discharge I'm going to see all day, Mr. David Mark Young. How are you?
I'm amazing, Dixon. How are you? Thank you as always for that warm welcome invitation, or not invitation. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well,
yeah, I don't know where you come up with this stuff, but it gets better and better every time. You know, I'm actually.
This is up here, man. This is a sick and twisted place. I'm just telling you, it's not for the faint of heart. You know.
Oh, I know. Yeah, this whole podcast thing came from just conversations. You know, it stemmed from just dialogue and, just the dialogues themselves. I know, having just regular discussions, we had talked about the reality of it and how perhaps others might find it entertaining or not.
You know, I think that first off, that's a good segue into what I want to ask you about. Before I do that, can you turn around and tell that young lady she is doing a hell of a job mopping that floor right there? I mean, just absolutely nailing it.
I'm supposed to tell you that you're doing an amazing job back there. We're recording. Thank you.
Missed a spot. No,
yeah, I am. By the way, let me just tell you real quick. So I am in Omaha, Nebraska, of course. Well, not of course. I've been traveling, but I'm in Proof Whiskey Bar, Proof 192, which is out in West Omaha. So I'm grateful. Look at this beautiful.
So that's not the one that we visited.
This is not the one in Midtown. Yeah, they have two locations, both great locations.
Those places are cool.
Yeah, they are cool.
Great selection, great cocktails. Food was phenomenal.
Yep. Yep. Matter of fact, I could smell it right now. They're not even open, but they allowed us to come in here and record our podcast.
Us, like you have a whole team, like an entourage.
Well, you're here too, and Myerton, and whether you're with me physically or just
know that this
in your
counts
heart,
as being there. It's like in spirit doesn't count. I do.
I can feel you, Dixon.
Is that the one that our buddy Robert got on the ladder?
It is. Okay. Right back here. I think Robert was climbing up top here. Yeah. Reaching for the good stuff. Yeah. We had a good photo shoot. Robert Mason from Warrant. Yeah. He was looking for some cherry pie whiskey and couldn't find it up on the top shelf. But yeah, matter of fact, I think Robert's going to join us.
Yeah, we got to
get a future episode.
That maniac on here and his
He's
dogs.
Back on tour.
He does have an entourage.
He does. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question then, and maybe we can't talk about this. I don't know. This is not where we're going with this, but this. I want you to be brief here.
Okay.
But I feel like this is a bourbon podcast, and so I always feel like, sometimes against my better judgment, I do pour a little bit of bourbon to have during this. I happen to have with me right now some Golden Sheaf bourbon.
Okay.
I guess this is batch 2, right?
Likely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you left it here, dude. I mean,
right. Well, yeah. I think you have some batch 1 as well.
No, remember I had a batch 1, and then we ended up leaving it at Bardstown Bourbon Company several years ago so that it could be on the shelf. So that was my batch 1 that is now in the fancy room at BBC.
Okay. The fancy room.
Again, that was another one you said, "Oh no, can we leave this here and I'll replace it?" And I don't have one, but I want to, because blending. We're talking blending bourbon. We're talking about like how specific can you get to the make, or are you willing to get with the makeup of this? Because we've had conversations about this. I love it. I love to.
Super specific, and I'm actually, I knew that's what you were going to ask, so I'm referencing my cheat sheet here. Yeah, it's I can tell you off the top of my head. I've been blending recently, so numbers may be a little hazy. That's why I'm looking for my little cheat sheet. But I can tell you that it's a mix of 3 different aged bourbons from Indiana, Kentucky, and Louisiana. The Louisiana was a I don't want to say an accidental find, but an intentional incorporation into that mix. But you're looking for mash bill? Is that what you're looking?
No. I'm looking for, because on a previous episode, as I recall, you were asking me if there was one specific thing that I always went back to, that I always used, that always rounded things out for me, that I had fallen in love with, that was special to me. And I don't know if you remember that question or conversation.
I do.
And it's just funny because, as we talked about this later, like your answer to that question, I cannot drink this without, like, that's where I go now. And
okay.
You know what I'm talking about? And
yeah.
Do you want to talk about that, or can we not talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I fell in love with MGP makes a great 99-1 corn, and at the right age, it is phenomenal. It's very sweet yet very bold. Of course, depending on what the proof. That's what I had in mind when I asked you that question. Yeah. It's I have a number of barrels, a number of different ages as well, but to me it's almost like a magic ingredient. It just really it's like a filter for a picture, right? The reason I bring this up, like, I keep going back to this, and I will tell you this, and this is out of love and respect. Your bottles, because I think of the proof that you bottle at, like, they and that's what people have told me, like, about the Phoenix blend that I did and other stuff. What happens to them after that bottle's been open for a day or 2 days or a week or whatever? I mean, the way they open up and soften and develop, and it becomes so much richer and easier to drink. And that, I mean, I've said that about higher proof whiskeys forever, but this one in particular strikes me as one that has benefited so incredibly much with just a little air, just open it up, just a little, and that's not a slight, like, that's right. A reality. That's a reality with bourbon, higher proof bourbons in general. But, like, this is not, when I taste this now, like, it's not that corny, grainy, mashy, youthful. I always tell people, like, if when you taste or smell a bourbon and it reminds you of, what it's like on a distillery tour to lean over those fermentation tanks, like, lean over that kind of dried, corny, cornfield, earthy, like, then it's too young. Right. Like, you can have corn, but it needs to be a mature corn sweetness, not a grainy, youthful note. This, to me, this is like we had at the end, and I think these things are at least 100 years old. Cast iron muffin pans, used them every single day. We got cornmeal from Weisenberger Mills, had sugar, had eggs, milk, and we would
heat these cast iron cornbread muffin pans in a 500-degree oven. And then when they were just smoking hot, we'd pull them out, drizzle the pans with lard, and then ladle in this cornmeal with a little bit of sugar and milk this is a Beaumont Inn like cornbread muffin to me. Like that's exact. I cannot get over it.
Wow. And that's a good thing, right? That's,
oh my gosh, this is my childhood. This is my I've been making those since I was 12 years old. But
yeah,
I did this the other day. I grabbed this and tasted it, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is like. I mean, I used to steal these out of the bread warmer, and the ladies in the kitchen would just chase me out of there.
Well, that would
it's like
be
a little bit of spice on the back, but it's that kind of rich, and I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to like.
I love it. And that's a good story for me to tell while we're doing some tastings with Golden Sheaf batch number 2, bourbon batch number 2. I love pairing certain things with whiskey, when we do an actual pairing, not just a tasting. But one thing I love to do is have a reference point. So have some cornbread or corn muffin with a high corn bourbon. Mm-hmm. Or some rye bread.
You're like just walking right into what I was going to ask you.
Wow,
it's almost like we planned this, but we didn't plan it because we didn't plan anything.
No, this is all by the seat of our pants.
Once again, by show prep, I mean taking a shower and thinking about what we're going to talk about today. And so recently. I have some great friends, people I've met. They're big bourbon fans. Came to Kentucky, stayed at the inn. I did a couple tastings with them. We became close friends. They're just some of the nicest people in the world. Actually, if you want to know the truth, they thought it was really funny. One time I did this thing at the Kentucky Derby Museum that Fred Minnick was doing, and he was a big interview, and she actually made me some ascots with owls on them that she wanted me to wear.
Nice.
And she was actually offended that I didn't wear the owl ascot. And I was like, I don't need to, I need Fred on my good side. I don't need to poke the bear there. But anyway, they're great people, great friends.
Would have made a great gift for Fred.
Yes. Well, I probably should have done that. That would have been a better idea. But so anyway, they sent me a text, said, "Hey, we're going to Omaha. I know you've been in Omaha. Where do we need to go in Omaha?" I said, "Well, I was in Omaha. Much like most of my visits, it's not like I get to go do all the cool, fun things. I'm meeting with distributors and running around to accounts. However, let me consult the pride of Omaha, and he'll give you some recommendations." So you connected with them. You gave them some places. They had a phenomenal trip, and sent us a bunch of pictures, I think, which you posted some of.
I posted them, yeah.
Yes. Now, here is the crux of the question. Here's where we're going with this. I don't know what places they were at. Maybe they were there. Did they go to Proof?
They didn't come here. No, they went to Spirit World down in
but they sent us these great pictures, and they had a flight of Golden Sheaf.
They did.
With like a beautiful charcuterie board, cheese and charcuterie board. I think there were other pictures. There were other things.
Yeah.
That type of stuff. And, I want to dive into this in a number of different ways.
Kind of see. Can you see that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Empty glasses, too.
Yeah.
They drank the whiskey and didn't touch the food. But I think, and this is all on your Instagram, right? This is at which you have like 19. Which,
it's on the Golden Sheaf Bourbon Instagram.
At Golden Sheaf, at Bourbon Authority. Is that right? Is it on that
it's
one?
just Golden. It might have been shared cross-platform, but yeah, it was primarily on the Golden Sheaf Instagram page and Facebook page.
So here's where I'm going with this. You see your whiskeys, your rye, your bourbon, your port finish. From your perspective, like when somebody says, I'm going here and I'm going to this restaurant, how do I order food with your whiskeys? What food pairs? What should I do? Or if you were in that account and they said, hey, these people have ordered, they want to try all the Golden Sheafs and they want to know what they should order with them. Or does that even work at all? And do you say, don't? Or, your thoughts on how that works? Because you know me, I got tons of thoughts, but I've been talking a lot.
You haven't been talking enough. So first of all, they did, they came into town. They were here for a sporting event. I was out of town, so unfortunately I didn't get to meet up with them in person. But they ended up over at Spirit World, which is in Omaha. Great location. Lori Helbush, owner operator.
Oh, that okay.
Yeah, you remember Lori?
Yeah.
And Elzuri. Elzuri's kind of
they did she was the one that put on the festival and everything, right?
Yeah. Lori
awesome store.
Is
awesome location.
Absolutely awesome. Great location.
I thought it was a restaurant. I didn't realize. Well, I mean, I know it is, but I didn't put.
Yeah. It's an experience. It's it's all the things they've got. The folks they have in there are they're experts. It's like walking into a library.
That's like a bucket list thing people need to experience. It's
Absolutely.
Really freaking cool.
Agree. Yeah, and they do all kinds of custom barrel picks, and they do everything too. It's such a broad wine,
and it's the
beer,
busiest
spirits.
damn liquor store I've ever been in my entire life. The number of people in there. It was insane.
Yeah, they do events. There's always something going on there. Yeah, it's a great destination for all the things. We'll go there and camp out sometimes and just kind of hang out and do some sampling. People get wind that Golden Sheaf is set up and they'll come in there and it's great people, great experience.
They were great to me. They were phenomenal to me. I was
always. So food wise, gosh, this is something that it's right now. People are asking all the things. Hey, what's a good cocktail recipe for Golden Sheaf bourbon, for Golden Sheaf rye?
That's a different episode.
That's a different episode. And food as well. Food pairings. We've done a number of tastings where we'll exclusively just taste whiskey and that's it. And then some folks will request food pairings. And so I wouldn't necessarily. I'm typically a neat whiskey drinker.
Yeah, we know.
But I'm because of this, I'm beginning to explore. And also inquire. How folks are drinking their whiskey and what they're eating.
I know that you're a neat whiskey drinker, but are you like if you grilled a big steak, would you pour a neat whiskey and enjoy that whiskey with the steak? Or are you like, I'm gonna have this after dinner, I'll have this, or like if a restaurant that you were fond of said, yeah, we're we've been serving our, we've been recommending Golden Sheaf rye with our signature spinach and artichoke dip. Like, is that cool with you? Is that not cool with you? How do you, how does that?
It's absolutely, yeah. It's great. I tend to look to folks like that for advice for me to give out as well, but I'm also exploring that. And so my own personal experience for me to There's a number of places in town that I frequent for dinner, especially a steak. There's a lot of great steak places here in Omaha. There's one place in particular, the Drover, one of my favorite places. We're going there this weekend, actually. And they
can't
have...
make it. Sorry, thanks.
Can't make
Thanks
it?
for
Well,
inviting me,
next time. But they have a whiskey marinade steak, and it's you can get any one of their steaks with this whiskey marinade. Personally, I think it would be. I know it's a proprietary whiskey, but perhaps someday they'll indulge in having a, either a one time or incorporate Golden Sheaf into that, the pride of Omaha whiskey wise. But I don't know if it's the whiskey that's infused in this steak, but the last few times I've been there, that's been my go-to. It's been the Golden Sheaf that goes great with this center cut filet. It's just so juicy. And the other, it's the entire meal too. So they start with, or at least I start with some bacon wrapped shrimp, and it pairs naturally for me. It could be that it's some of my favorite foods on the planet, but all through the entire course of the meal. And I'll even have, I'm typically a ranch guy on my salad, but I'll have a French dressing with my salad there because it pairs a little better with, with the Golden Sheaf. So steak wise, that's, and I've also made my own steaks where I don't like to cook. I don't like to sip whiskey while I'm cooking. It has something to do with just the air and the smoke and so
burning things.
Yeah. But rather including my own skin, but sitting down and enjoying the meal. Absolutely. I will have a pour, and they've, I know you want to.
No,
what?
I mean, it's. I think there are certain people behind brands that would say, do not cloud the palate with food, with all the, and I got, that's really that's where I draw the line. It's like, are we talking about clouding the palate? Or are we talking about
complimenting?
Forget that. Who gives it? I'm not trying to. We're trying to create memorable experiences here.
Right.
We're trying to have it. You know what? If you're, I don't know, I'm trying to think of. Okay, we're at 11 Madison Park, and there's 9 courses of little tidbits of food coming out that are all supposed to wow me in a special way. But you know what? If I want to sip on a little Russell's Reserve while I'm doing it, that's my choice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I agree. So let's pull a thread a little bit further. Personally, I discovered some specific appetizers, small plate types of things that I really enjoy.
Actually, I need to interject something here. Let me give it a time out. Just because don't go anywhere from that. But people need to know that you don't mess around at a restaurant or a
right.
bar. Like, you see a bar and you don't, it's not like, I'll have, you order doubles.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope your mom's not listening. She's not one of the 8 people listening to this. Like, you're like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's, I want this double neat. Like, you don't fool around. So when you go into this story, like, people need to know, like, you're all in.
I'm all in. Just like everything else. Absolutely. A double neat. Yep. Let's go. That makes me happy. And
sorry, Mrs. Mark Young.
No, Mrs. Mark Young. I
have
would
a
agree
hyphenated
with you.
last name, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mark Young.
Yeah.
Samuel. No, it's not. It's just it's you're going to get me off topic here. You're getting me excited about all the things. But no, I've started to kind of adopt my own, and ironically, it's things that I already consume, and they somehow mysteriously pair well with the at least the whiskeys that I'm blending. So one thing in particular is a bacon wrapped water chestnut that's soaked or marinated in a coconut amino, similar to a soy sauce, but more of a thicker, almost sweeter. And it pairs really nicely with bourbon batch number 2. And then,
so I would say that, you've kind of mentioned 3 things. 2 of them are bacon wrapped. I mean, you kind of have a bacon wrap thing going, but I also think you wrap something in bacon, it's going to pair well with whiskey. Like bacon, bacon and whiskey.
Yep, especially sweeter, and that's what I'll do is kind of roll those in a either brown sugar or something sweeter, so it's almost a candied bacon, and even incorporate a little bit of that bourbon into the coconut aminos to just directly connect with the bourbon itself. Same with steak. When I cook my steaks, inevitably there's a little bit of bourbon incorporated in that. Typically out on marinade, but I'll tell you what I love is just light plate stuff. You talked about charcuterie board. Charcuterie. But I just love dates, especially dates and dried cherries and just lightly sea salted almonds and that type of stuff. To me, that's, and you put a little bit of chocolate in there. You can even incorporate some cheese into the whole spread, but some darker chocolate, a little bit of sea salt.
For somebody who doesn't cook, you fake it pretty well.
But I do cook. I cook.
I thought you were saying you didn't cook. I mean, my favorite. I tell you, a whiskey recipe that, and my problem is I don't cook from a recipe. I just cook. Like I look at a recipe, it's like a reference point. But
yeah,
at one point I fell in love with steak au poivre. Like steak au poivre, it's like a kind of a black peppercorn sauce. So you do fillets in a cast iron skillet, and then you get them about rare, and then you just put them in a slow oven, and you take that skillet, that cast iron skillet, where normally that traditional recipe is like cognac or brandy to deglaze the pan, and I'm putting like the heaviest whiskey I can in there to deglaze that pan, and you cook the alcohol out of it or whatever. But then you throw a little mustard, some cream, and that thickens up, and you pour that over your steak, and it's this great kind of whiskey note with the meat, and then a big glass of whiskey beside that. Like I told you my wife's out of town. I may feed my kids and put them to bed and make just a massive steak au poivre tonight. You
better turn that camera on, and we'll get some cooking with Dixon Deadman.
No, I mean that is special stuff. But
that sounds amazing.
When you go with like a heavy whiskey and you get that whiskey note instead of that kind of winey note, it takes it to another level. But I guess it's funny. It's like there's a there's a school of thought, right? It's like this is a fancy schmancy bourbon, and I don't want to mess it up with food. Like, if I eat blue cheese, I'm never going to be able to experience the subtle nuance of this bourbon. And to me, it's kind of like, I want to experience this bourbon. I want to experience this cheese. I want to see how they play together. I want to, and then if I don't know. I've never been one to say, oh, you have to, this is all you can do with this, or this is all you can do with that.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. It's opened up, definitely opened my eyes to, because that's exactly where I was, where I've been for so long is, I want to enjoy this for what it is. And you know, I even, for the longest time, for years and years, I decided I'm going to focus on bourbon. I'm going to taste bourbons. I'm going to, limit myself to bourbon, which is not very limiting. There's a lot of bourbon out there, but explore bourbons, become familiar and comfortable with bourbons, you know, and that was from a blender perspective. But since I've started to go, and it's been, you know, a couple of years, but, you know, into other whiskeys and that sort of thing, I've also opened myself up to, food pairings, and have attended a number. There's and
that's not easy to do. Like that's a topic for another conversation. I want to tell you one funny story, and then and I'm not gonna say specific names, but people can find this if they want to. But once upon a time, I cannot remember where I was. I think I was in Nashville, and this is when I was doing the Kentucky Owl thing, and we were working with, I think it was like Flaviar. I think we were working with Flaviar.
Yep.
And they were doing all these like putting this stuff together, and so it was a recording, and they had these two like bloggers, podcasters, and their job was to create like multiple food pairings for the confiscated bourbon that I had released.
Okay.
And in addition to them, they brought on this very famous hip hop artist, rapper, who also is like has a YouTube channel about cooking. He's a cook. And we became great friends. I don't know if you know this. I think I've told you this. My middle son just thinks he's going to be a rapper. Like he just loves, you know, he's always rapping. And so like they connected, they played games, they played video games together and all this kind of stuff. But so this guy comes on and he's like, so they sent us, and I had to go. I was in Nashville. They had the ingredients shipped to me. He went and bought the ingredients. We got on there. We all tasted the ingredients with the whiskey and decided like which ones worked better or whatever. But in the, what they call the, as you know, because we do it all, you know, the green room, right before you go on.
Very familiar with the green room.
He's like, yeah, I'm about to get my palate right. And we're like, okay, what's that mean? And then he pulls out and starts smoking this monster thing that you smoke.
Yeah.
And and he was like, he's green. Like, this is my favorite blend or whatever you call it to go with whiskey. And I was like, okay, I need to know. I need not on the show, but after this, like, okay, we're having pepper jelly on cream cheese. We're having Americana almonds. We're having I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like some sort of brie or whatever. But there's apparently a whole nother side of things outside of food that pairs very well. I don't know much about that because that's, you know, I've been a drinker, not a, you know, whatever. But
yeah,
I was like, okay. I want to know more about how that pairing works and how that happens.
Yeah. Same, you know, same with cigars. It's, I think there's similarities in there, you know, and as, I mean, you're talking about a movement here, you know, I mean, and not to get too far off the topic, I know we're at the tail end of this episode, but I think you kind of just got into a whole nother realm, a whole nother discussion, which should carry over to another podcast, because that's one of the things we're considering as a cigar blend. But what you're talking about is marijuana, and you know, with the decriminalization and legalization of marijuana, it's going to become a thing. If
and
not
is there
already.
a thing? Like, is there a bridge?
I think there
like,
is.
there a? And
Absolutely.
I think he would be willing to come on the show. Actually,
I think that would be amazing. I think it's absolutely worth a discussion.
it'd be fun. It'd be fun.
It would be fun. Yeah. We find some pairings. Yeah, I don't know myself as far as pairing that. And same with cigars. I'm not a huge cigar.
Well, that one's easy. We can find the person to do that. But
Right.
let's get an expert to do the other. Here's another thing.
Yeah.
And I'm throwing this out there, and then we're going to say goodbye. But one of the thoughts that I had about upcoming show topics was, and we kind of referenced this before, but like, I would love to have multiple episodes, and I don't know if it's a contest, competition, throw your hat in the ring, in a lottery, a raffle. I'm not sure anybody participate in that. I don't know, but like, let's figure out a way. And if any of I think we're up to 9 listeners out there have thoughts on this.
Hundreds.
If there is, like, let's get the guy that listens to this podcast that is an everyday, like, that is just a bourbon person that wants the opportunity to say, hey, where, you know, I'd love to ask them, where do you think bourbon is going? What is your beef with bourbon these days? What do you think is cool about what's happening in the bourbon space? What brands excite you? What brands drive you crazy? I'd love to try to figure out a way. If there are some listeners that say, hey, you know what? I'd like to come on the podcast and just riff with y'all for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. I would love to do that. And I'd love to figure that out. And if people want to respond to, you know, or comment on, or send a DM to the Blending Bourbon podcast Instagram and say, hey, I'm in.
Yeah.
When can I come on? Like, I think we should do it. I think it would be awesome.
That's a great, call to action. I agree 100%. Yeah, let's find that person.
You're going to have to speak louder. We can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Can
turn
you hear
your
me now?
stuff up. There you go.
Okay.
Much better. Quit playing with the knobs.
Yeah.
Listen to what I'm saying and quit playing with the knobs.
I'm not
But
turning
let's
up.
let's do that. Let's think about that. And then if anybody out there in the world wants to come on and say, hey, either tell me more about this, or I got some stuff I need to get off my chest about the state of bourbon, and we'll weigh in on it. Let's make that happen.
Let's make that happen. Send us a DM, send us a message to either Instagram, Blending Bourbon, or Blending Bourbon on Facebook. Either one, there's contact information there. Absolutely. Comment, like, subscribe, share. But yeah, let's do it. Let's find that person,
I think that would be
male,
fun.
female. Let's get them on the show.
I don't think we always need to have some expert on here. There's a lot of people out there in the bourbon world that know a hell of a lot more than either of us combined, and it would be fun to get their take and just have a conversation. So you want to be on the show, send us a note.
Send us a note. Yep, we will respond. We will find the best candidate, and perhaps multiple folks will get on here. But I love it.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Join our hot mess. All right, I gotta run.
Sounds like a plan.
I've got to do. I gotta see a man about a dog.
All right.
But
I want to continue this dialogue too. I want to talk a little bit about, tasting and, olfactory senses and all that. I think there's we just open up a whole new can of worms. There's other things there. There's, that's a critical aspect of blending bourbon, and but we'll pull that thread on the next episode.
Yeah, I promise to let you talk more on the next episode. I'm sorry.
I love hearing you talk, Dixon. That's why I watch these episodes.
Right. Yeah. Right. I'm going to finish my cornbread.
Enjoy. Thanks for all of the kind words about that. Let's get some Beaumont in corn muffins and pair them up with some Golden Sheaf Batch 2 bourbon and have us a tasting, have us a party.
Love it. Cheers, brother.
Cheers, brother. Thanks, everybody. Like, share, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Cheers.